Thank you, Janine. My name's Marie Quigley, and as you can see, my fantastic partner, Janine Bailey, give us a wave and a sound, Janine, so people can see you in case they can't see hear you.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see some very familiar faces and some new faces too.
Absolutely.
So welcome. Thank you for being here.
So we're co-founders of Empower World. We provide coach training, both foundational and advanced, as well as coach mentoring and executive coaching to people and organizations around the globe. We've recently moved our live coach training online. We've been doing that for the past year now, and we've got some fantastic responses from all around the world for coaches who really feel that they're receiving a training that is really transformational, not that surface coaching that some people do, but the deep transformational work that Janine and I are very proud of creating. So what you're attending is one of our Empower World alumni events. We have got hundreds of alumni around the world, and we invite them to come on and share their knowledge. We have a belief that Janine and I, when we learn something, we want to share it with the world, and we also invite our community to do that. Our community is filled with wisdom and experience, as well as being professional coaches. So our alumni events range from kinesiology to Reiki, from appreciative inquiry, which is our next month's event, to grief coaching, which is what we're going to talk about with Ren today. So we invite our alumni, and please, if you're an alumni and want to create an event for us, we would love to hear from you. If you're not part of our alumni and want to be, please send an email to support@empower-world, and we'll put you on our list and share all our programs with you. We've got a fabulous podcast. We think it's fabulous anyway, and so do our listeners. All talking about all things coaching. So check that out wherever you get your podcasts from. And we also have a regular reflection space where you can bring your work, yourself as a coach, and your work. You can have one complimentary session. Again, if it's the first time for you attending, that is a gift from us. Just send an email to support@empower-world.com and say complimentary gift for reflection space, and you'll get one session, and then you can choose if you would like to continue with that program again. So that's all about us. You can find more about us online. The focus this morning is on the fabulous Ren Vlasik. Hopefully I've got your surname kind of okay there, Ren. I always struggle with that Polish.
I know. Vlasiuk.
Vlasiuk. Yeah. So we've got the amazing Ren Vlasiuk, try it again. And she's going to be talking about grief and the process of how we can use that within the coaching, as well as all the neuroscience behind that. Ren is one of our alumni. She trained a number of years ago with us. She's an ICF accredited coach, and we're very, very proud to have her with us this morning. So without any more ado, I'm going to hand this over to Ren to begin. Thank you, Ren.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you. Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Janine, for having me here today. And thank you to everyone for showing up. It's not the lightest of topics, but it really is an important one. And it's great that more and more people are opening up to it. So my name is Ren Vlasiuk. I'm originally from Ireland, lived half my life in England and the other half here in Qatar. We've been here 15 years now, my husband and I. My background briefly, my degree was in philosophy and religion and ethics. And so looking at death and grief is natural for me. Looking at the aspects of it, investigating it, and looking at how it affects us and how we deal with it as a society. I used to teach in secondary school in England, and doing topics such as death was always difficult. But we did it, and I embraced it, and I do enjoy. I love the sticky topics. I've been coaching now for about 4 or 5 years in Qatar. Coaching has been an amazing opening and revelation for me. And as I look at grief in the last couple of years through coaching, it's classic of all the topics when we cover in coaching. You look at it and think, oh God, I wish I knew that years ago. Yeah, and it's like I would have dealt with X so much better. So it's always wonderful learning more and more new things all the time through the power of coaching. So I can't think of anything else to say, and that's enough about me anyway now. So what I would like to do is just go into the topic. And in discussing grief, especially if you're coaching on grief or you're dealing with grief with somebody, a relative or a friend, the most important thing is protecting yourself. If you're not the one grieving, if you are the one grieving, it's slightly different. You're not in a mind state of protection. But if you are dealing with it through someone else, not getting into the hole with your friend, relative, client, whoever it is very important, because you can't help them. You've got to be able to stand back a bit, be empathetic, but not sympathetic. With that in mind, I would like to kickstart this off with a little visualization. With your permission, and you're welcome to join. And just, it's a form of protective visualization, sort of like trying to give you a little bit of a suit of armor to go into this topic, just in case any one of you are already experiencing grief, dealing with grief in any traumatic way. This may help you just to stand back a bit and be mindful of your own self. So I would like to invite you all to just sit back for a few minutes, close your eyes. You can switch off the video on your screen if you want to have complete privacy. And I just want you to just relax and just focus on your breathing. Just deep breathing, in and out. In and out. And as you're breathing in and out, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out. Just focus on counting 2, 3, 4, 5 in, and release 4, 5 out. Just relax and just focus on the room you're in, nothing else. Keep your breathing regular and even, and just let everything go. Now I want you to imagine that you're in a dark room, a dark, dark room, so black you can't even see your hand in front of you. And you don't know why you're there. You just arrived there. So you're sitting down and you're feeling what's going on in the room. And then you get up to walk around to see, okay, where's the door? So you find the wall and you're feeling your way around the walls. Nothing, you can see nothing. So you're literally feeling your way around in this dark room. And there's no door, there's no window. And you think, how did I get in here? Why am I in here? A little bit scared. So you start to shout, hello, who's out there? Why am I in here? Trying to find answers. And no response back, there's no sound, there's no feedback, it's just this black, black room. And as you're wandering around the room, you kick over something, you knock your knee, you stub your toe, you get frustrated, you're getting angry, because you don't know why you're here, and you can't understand what's going on. So you start to shout with anger now. Let me out, let me out. And no answer. And I just want you to imagine you're there, time passes, no one's coming, it's still quiet. And you're shouting, but you're getting hoarse and you're tired. So you start bargaining. Okay, let me out, I won't tell anyone. let me out and I'll just not press charges. I'll give you my bank account number, whatever. You're trying to appeal to their better nature, if there is someone there. Again, nothing happens. So again, you don't know how long you're there. It's like time just stands still. So you slip into resignation. Okay, someone's gonna be out eventually. I'll stay here forever. But starve to death, that would be murder. And again, time goes on and on and on. You're sitting there. Now, feel the room. Is it hot and stuffy? Or is it cold and unwelcoming? Which one is it for you? And you slip slowly into acceptance. Because you believe with your logical mind, you will get through this. This whole scenario is illogical. But your logical mind is telling you, it's okay, hang in there. And then you look up and you notice the frame of a doorway lit in light. You think, hello, I didn't notice that before. And hope rises in you. There's a way out. So do you run to the door or do you walk cautiously? You go to the door and you turn the handle and it opens, just like that. It opens. It's there all the time. Why didn't you see it? And you gaze out and you breathe in the fresh air and the light. And you know that you're free. And as you know that freedom comes, or you just go back to concentrating on your breathing. Breathe in, breathe out. Deep breath in, 2, 3, 4, 5. And breathe out, 2, 3, 4. In and out. And then come back to the room you're in. And then come back to the space in Zoom when you're ready. Okay, people, welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. So a few people have joined us along the way of the visualization, and someone's just joined that may have missed it. What we just did was a little thought process to help you protect and prepare for the subject in case any of you are vulnerable, going through grief, and indeed just to sort of give you that little bit of armor against falling into the hole or coming away from here feeling depressed, because I don't want that. I want to make sure everyone is looking after themselves. So you know how to look after yourself, so please do. Okay, Janine, could you put up the first sheet on understanding grief? Thank you very much, Janine. Okay, so everyone hopefully can see this. We've got the picture of a man and all the words of grief and sorrow and anguish all around him. A classic picture of someone feeling grief. Now, if you look online or you read in books, you'll come across the 5 stages of grief, the 7 stages, the 12 stages. There's like endless amount, but the crux are the 5 stages first talked about back in 2005 by David Kessler and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who've written many books on death and grieving and grief, especially Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who has passed away since, exploring all the angles. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance are the basic 5 that everyone agrees on, and then people add in around that what they feel is necessary. And with denial comes shock, numbness, or pain. You can be literally numb with the shock or riddled with pain at the thought that you've lost someone you dearly love. Anger, disbelief, and often guilt comes in. Guilt is a big one with death. I should have done, maybe if I. There's always that going on in our heads. Bargaining, non-acceptance, and a fear of change. So when you lose someone, there's a huge change you're facing without them, and it's can be very frightening. Take Queen Elizabeth, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, you know, her partner for 70 odd years. It's like losing an arm. There's a part of her gone. You know, it's very difficult to sort of let go of someone who's always been there at your side all your life. Depression, when the reality sets in, you can't change anything. There's no reset button. You can't go back. You know, this is it. This is your reality from now on. And acceptance, which is just working through and seeking support. Now, it's important to know this is not a map. This is not a linear process. This is not a step-by-step of how grief happens. You will not necessarily go through those 5 in that order. You may not even go through the 5. If you've gone through a long-term illness with someone close to you, and it could even be your own illness, you could go through those first 4 stages before the death, as you are preparing to meet it. And when death finally happens, you could already be in acceptance. So any order that they can come. And the process is unique to the individual. And along the way, people can get stuck. Some people get stuck in anger for years. You may often hear about or read about people who've lost someone and have remained angry with the world forever since. It's because they're stuck there. They don't know how to move forward. And sometimes that anger becomes such a reliable pattern. They don't want to move forward. They don't want to leave it. Their anger means that they are always remembering the person they loved. And if they let go of the anger, they're afraid that that love will diminish or the memories will diminish. So with people like that stuck in anger, you can't hurry them on, but it's about showing them possibilities of what's out there as an alternative to anger when the time is right. So if someone comes to you stuck in anger for years, you know they've done the hard part of their grieving. So there is a process you can help them through. But if somebody's in the early stages of grief and still in anger, that might just be too soon. So it's important to remember when the time is right for them. Thank you, Janine. You can remove that one now. So we grieve for more than the dead. There is that obvious one. But basically, we can grieve for anything that's important to us that's taken away. Now, that could be a job, that could be a loss of home through financial crisis. It could be a pet. It's about connection. So grief is about our connection to something or someone or the world. So never diminish anyone's grief, even if it's for their pet. Some people think, well, it's not like losing a human. Probably one of the worst things to say to someone. I'll talk about the worst things to say to people later on, but that it's not for anyone else outside of that person to decide whether that grief is worth it or not. So grief is basically the price we pay for love. And when we bond, we're motivated. When we bond with someone, when we're separated from our bond, we're motivated to reunite. So you're in love with someone or you're very close to someone, you go away for the weekend, you can't wait to get back to them, you're reunited, everything's fine. But when death happens, they're removed from you, there is no reunification. And that's the hard part. That's the sort of disbelief part, the shock. When we can't be reunited, we then get frustrated and angry and ultimately we start to grieve. So simply put, grief is a frustration of our desires. So it's loss of connection and a frustration of our desires. In some ways, grief can be quite selfish, because we get so absorbed in our desire to want to be with someone that we've lost that we lose touch with the connections that we have around us. That's when people reject the people around them. They're angry and they don't want love from anyone. They want that love. That's the one they want. And it might be harsh to say it's selfish, but maybe it's the wrong word, but in a way it is, because you're actually thinking more of your loss as opposed to the person that's died, because the love is still there. And when we finally reach acceptance, acceptance can be still continuing to love someone, but accepting that they're no longer with you. And by the way, if anyone would like to pop in with a question, either to write it on the side or put your hand up, hopefully, or pop in and say hi, please do. You're welcome along the way. If something comes up, a thought, a process, a suggestion of any kind. And otherwise, we will have a little Q&A at the end as well for that. So grief is often one of the least understood of our emotions. It's a very hard one to research, to direct one-on-one research. It's getting better, but it's difficult because no one going through grief thinks, hey, I'd make a great candidate for research. And you wouldn't say to someone who's in the midst of grief, say, hey, you know what, you'd be great to research on. Kind of isn't done, isn't it? Yeah, so it's a difficult one. It always has to be done almost intuitively and with hindsight. Grief on animals, big thing as well. We know there's evidence of elephants who grieve when the member of their herd dies, the matriarch dies. Whales have been known to carry their dead babies around for miles before they finally let them go. They did research looking at grief in animals on some field mice in America a few years back. And they chose a monogamous type of mouse, some kind of monogamous type of field mouse, I forget the name, but they made for life, and they wanted to see how they would cope with separation. So they had mouse 1 and mouse 2 together, happily living together. And then they take mouse 2, funny enough, the female mouse, and they put her in a cage, and the male mouse is on his own. Now, I think it's interesting that they chose to lock up the female. It's a bit like the damsels in distress that has to be sort of rescued. I wonder if the research would have been different if it was the male that was locked and the female to get to them. That's just me and my warped thinking. So they proceeded to train mouse 1, the male mouse, to pull a lever that would release the partner and reward the male mouse every time with a little treat for rescuing his mate. And every time they were delighted to be back together. And they observed the way the brain behaved each time that the mice were reunited and what lit up. Then they hid the partner one more time, and at clockwork, the mouse 1 comes running out, and there's no partner there. So he's pulling the lever, he's looking around, he's looking for his treat, goes back into his bed. And this pattern continues every day for a period of time, and they keep mouse 2 hidden away. So he gets a bit frustrated sometimes, he shows signs of frustration, and then over a period of time, he stops and eventually gives up. So from that, they could see that this mouse was determined to try and find every day for a period of time his partner. Now, in terms of actual grief with regards to elephants or whales or mice, we don't know for sure if it's grief or a sense of survival that drives them to want to be with their partner. Is it a sense of survival in the elephant herd when one dies, they're weakened? And yet, is that their form of grief anyway? So more work being done on that, but interesting to see that sentient beings do suffer from detachment and the removal of someone that they have connection with. People often mistake grief for depression. Doctors do. But even if you're depressed, antidepressants won't help you. There's no point. You'll still be grieving. And research shows that about 1 in 10, statistics again, never know, 1 in 10 stall in their grief process and get stuck. As I said, often with anger, sometimes with depression, sometimes even denial. Sometimes if your grief is so overwhelming, so powerful, that from the moment you wake up in the morning till you go to bed, you are in a state of overwhelming, all-consuming grief. And imagine that going on for years. It's no state for anyone to try and live in. It has no purpose. It doesn't serve the griever, it doesn't serve the person who's passed on, and it doesn't serve the family. And this is where some people need to get to a point to reach out for help, whether it's therapy, grief support groups, coaching, whatever. Sometimes we need outside help. It could even just be a friend that you can talk to. So as I said earlier, grief is not just about coping with loss, it's about dealing with change, the huge change that you're faced without someone to support you. And I remember a time, it's less so now with modernity, but back in the 80s, people I knew, older people I knew, and especially the women who would lose their partner, saying, oh, I don't think I can cope because he did everything. He did all the financial work. How am I going to cope? What am I going to do? And it's that whole frightening change of suddenly having to be in charge of your life. And that was just the way things were done then, you know, with male-female relationships. It could easily have been the other way around as well. There are men who lose their wives who have never done certain things and have to start learning. So with that change comes new learning that is reluctantly received. So death is when someone who's available to you now no longer is. And that absence of that person leaves a hole. And the closer and stronger the communication, the greater the hole. And depending on it, and sometimes that hole is huge. Sometimes that hole just feels like a huge void inside of you that just so big. How do you fill it? How do you even begin to feel it? And sometimes it might just be a small hole if it's someone that you are close to but you miss. And it may just take certain events that bring thoughts back in memories. So it's a smaller patch, it's a smaller hole that you can control and maybe in time start to fill. But it's the big one. How do you start? It's difficult because you don't know what it's like to be in the person's shoes who's like that. And even if you've experienced it yourself, it's not the same. And it's back to what's the worst someone can say to you? Oh, I know what you're going through. Actually, you don't. Think about expressions of love and how they invert themselves when someone is lost. We've lost someone. I love you with all my heart. I love you with every fiber of my being. And someone dies and it's like this whole physical pain in your heart, in your body, every fiber of your being is in pain. Or it could just be numb, dead. You are my world. You complete me. Becomes the person's left empty, lost, disconnected. You know, it's the flip side of all of those things happen when we're facing grief. The problem can be when people want to try and treat this gaping hole by themselves and they patch it up either with extreme activity. Must be busy, mustn't think. They spend so much time, it's called grief avoidance. They spend so much time avoiding thinking about the person they've lost that they're constantly mentally looking for triggers that might trigger off a memory and trying to avoid it. So they're almost in a hyper state of vigilation all the time, which is hugely stressful. And possibly even, they reckon, more thoughts about the person who's died pops into your head because you're so actively looking for triggers to avoid, instead of just relaxing and let the triggers happen and lose their impact over time. So when people first are trying to fix that gaping hole, they only want solace. They're not looking for a solution yet. They just want either to forget or just to be comforted. And there's a time for reflection and healing. And if you're constantly busy, working all the hours God gave you, constantly exercising, whatever it is you're doing for distraction, you're not giving yourself time to reflect and heal. So you will hear people say, oh, you know, oh, how are you coping? He says, oh, I keep myself busy. I keep myself busy. Now, to a certain extent, that's good, but that can be too much busy as well. So it's that fine balance. How long should a person grieve for? Any thoughts? How long? Is there a length of time? It's a bit like how long's a piece of string? When is enough? Consider how long, how much you loved your loved one is how much you will grieve. Remember, grief is the price we pay for love. The deeper the love, the deeper the grief. And the more relaxed the love, you know, like it's a removed love, the more removed the grief is and easier to deal with. Triggers and memories may continue to be painful, but if you haven't processed properly along the way, they're always going to be painful. And it's like the person who's on that constant vigilant look for triggers is not accepting dealing with the triggers, so they're always going to be painful. Grief is a process, so it's not a task. It's a process you go through in your own time. And acceptance is more than just simply admitting to the loss. So it's not that simple. You can't claim acceptance, you just become accepting of the situation. It's a bit like, how do you know when you're in love? How do you know when you first start to love someone? Is there a point in time where you didn't love them and then did love them? Or was it an easing in gradual thing? Same for acceptance with grief. There isn't a pre-acceptance and a post-acceptance, and this is the demarcation line. It's a phase, a process you gently enter into and open up to and awaken to. You eventually realize you have accepted, but if you took back, you might not necessarily be able to pinpoint when you did accept the situation. And it's important to remember again, accept the pain, it's proof of your love. It really is. And if you can remember that, and remember the love rather than the pain, that might help. Important to take care of yourself during that time. And if you're helping someone else, to emphasize the importance of self-care. The basics, you know, just washing, getting up, breathing, cleaning your teeth, all of those basic stuff. For some people initially, it's too much. It's so overwhelming that the basic everyday things are too gone beyond them. In taking care of yourself in time, it's good to talk about your grief. Don't keep grief in your head. It'll explode. Just let it out. Let it go from here and here out. Talk to people who are close with that person. Talk to someone who can understand, who's willing to give you the time to listen and just listen. It is unfortunate some people don't have that type of person in their life. So maybe that's where support networks, therapy, coaching comes into play, where they can talk freely. I remember years ago, a friend of mine said she was seeing a psychiatrist. Nothing to do with grief, but just, and I was appalled. And I said to her, why don't you talk to me? We're supposed to be friends. And she said, there comes a point where you don't want to burden your friends with things that are heavy in your head, and better to talk to a professional that you freely can talk and vent. And then I can come to you with the little things which is I don't want to impose on our friendship, which I thought was a beautiful thing to say, but also kind of sad that she didn't feel she could let go. But that worked for her. So whatever works for the individual. Now, grief is a choice, believe it or not. We can choose not to have grief. Indeed, some people actively avoid closeness and relationships because they're so afraid of the fallout of loss. People lose someone and they vow never again they're going to love. It's too painful. People lose a pet and decide never again they're going to have a pet. It's too painful. So it's that focus on the pain rather than the love that you had and the wonderful time you had with that love is what drives them forward. So if we choose not to have grief, it comes with a price. Can't fall in love, can't have pets, can't have children or parents, can't make meaningful connections. That's the price. So the choice is every individual's choice. Do you want a life with no grief and no connection, but safe, but no death? And embracing love, it's part and parcel. The other side of love, the other side of the penny of love is grief. It will happen eventually. Grief, a bit like death and taxes, it's going to happen. We can't avoid it. So in thinking about that, what would a life without grief be like for you? What would you have to forsake, for starters? Or how would you have to be growing up as a person to not have grief in your life? You know, it would take an incredible amount of, what's the word? Control to be like that. Okay, hopefully I am making sense and not talking too fast. I know that I can sometimes. Janine, would you mind popping up the sheet on the brain for me, please?
It's coming, Ren. Just
Lovely.
bear with me.
Yeah,
with me.
no problem.
For some reason, it's disappeared from my screen. So I'm just going to download it again.
No worries. So it's looking at how grief affects the brain, because everything starts there. And especially with regards to the little gland called the pituitary gland, which is quite a powerful gland and has an awful lot to do with pretty much every hormone in the body. If you're having problems, Jean, I could try and pull it up. Ah, there we are. Yes. Success. So this is a very simple picture of the brain. I didn't want it to become too convoluted and I didn't want to get too sciencey. I just want to sort of give you all the idea of where it all begins. So you've just received news, horrendous news of the loss of someone. Total shock, out of the blue, someone you're very close to. So the immediate and acute pain that hits you triggers the pituitary gland. And I don't know if I'm able to point, I don't think so, yeah. So it triggers the pituitary gland to produce ACTH, which is an adrenocorticotrophin. Adrenocorticotrophin, it's a hormone. Okay. This map may not be scientifically and proportionally correct, but it just gives you an idea of what I'm talking about. So the pituitary gland is in action. It's produced ACTH, and this ACTH sends a message down to the adrenal glands to produce cortisol. Now, we all know what cortisol does. It's terrible for the body. It's aging, it's draining, it sucks the power and life out of you. But with this shock, this grief, your body is now flooding with cortisol, and continuously, as long as you're in this state of shock. So this stress hormone causes damage to the body. This is why when people are in grief and shock, they are more prone to becoming ill because of the amount of cortisol, which has weakened the immune system. We often think they're ill because they're not eating properly, so they're becoming run down. But it's because the cortisone is running through their body, running them down, reduces their appetite, and then we see the outward signs of it. So it batters the immune system. The brain in itself becomes bottom heavy. So the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, the pituitary glands, the amygdala are all sort of quite intense and pulsing and dealing with cortisol and very busy. Whereas the top part of the brain, which deals with the sort of emotions and other aspects and control of emotions, is inactive, if you like. It's stationary or frozen. The shock has awakened the fight or flight mode that makes our emotions super sensitive. So the amygdala is overactive. And the amygdala is our last little bit of primeval man that receives the fight or flight or freeze information. It's a shock to the body. The brain doesn't know if this shock is going to be detrimental to your life. Is it an attack? Is it what's happening? You know, so the amygdala is primed, ready. Do we need to run? Do we need to run? So cortisol is running through your body to give that extra power to your limbs. So the amygdala is overactive. We've no emotional control. The limbic system is overactive. The pituitary glands producing hormones. So you've basically got a recipe for disaster. There's no emotional control. There's no logic coming in to say, this is why I'm like this, because you're not in a state to understand. A recipe for disaster. As we all know, most funerals often end up with an argument, a brawl. If you're Irish, you'll know what I mean. Because everyone's in this heightened state of emotion and no one is able to think logically, except for those who might have a sort of distant view or appreciation of grief. They're the ones that will be coming up and going, okay, let's calm down here. Let's get this together. As we process, we may enter deep sadness or depression as we mourn. And sadness and depression affect the amygdala. Again, always the poor old amygdala. As tiny as it is, it's always been affected, which affects sleep. Now that could be sleep in the way of can't sleep or too much sleep. You can go either way. Some people, when they receive the shock news of grief, they go into a state of shutdown and they go to bed and they stay there for weeks. And barely eat, they can't move from the bed, they just sleep, sleep, sleep. It's almost like, I can't deal with this now, so I'm going to sleep. I'll deal with it later. The depression and sadness also affects the hippocampus, which can cause brain fog and forgetfulness. Often people in a state of grief become forgetful. You may even see people age before your eyes. And that will be the cortisone bringing you down, dragging you down. The hippocampus is a funny little thing because it's a very delicate part of the brain. It's embedded in the temporal lobe. It's plastic. It's not literally plastic, but it's very plasticky and vulnerable and soft and easily damaged by neurological disorders. So if depression stays and sinks into clinical depression, it can affect the hippocampus, and it's even harder to get out of. In time, so the brain becomes locked in this stress state, and you've got cortisol running through your body, your brain is locked in this stressed frozen state, the amygdala is overactive, emotions are all over the place. In time, and it does take time, talking and therapy can help and be rewarding. And memories are important. So again, the person that shuts out the memories, that doesn't want the triggers, stays in this state of heightened vigilation, heightened cortisol. by allowing the memories to flood in, which initially will bring tears, eventually the memories become sweeter. And it's in that, when the memories become sweeter, the dopamine sets in, which is the good hormone that we want. And the more memories we remember and are rewarded with more dopamine, the less the cortisol takes its place and reduces. Exercise can improve moods and thought process if the person is up for it, if you're able for it. Exercise really important, but again, a fine line, because when you exercise, you create cortisol in your body, right? Because you're putting your body in a state of stress. The important thing with exercise is the rest afterwards, where the cortisol abates and you start to feel good and your muscles react by becoming stronger and you feel good about yourself. But the rest in between is the important thing in exercise. Otherwise, you're creating another continued state of cortisol levels all the time. It's about balance. Talking to people who understand as well. So that is how it happens in the brain. So next time when you're going through it or someone is going through it with this near you, someone you love, and they're all over the place, you now can think, okay, they're in a stress state, their amygdala is overreactive, their emotions are reactive. So I need to give them something that will make them feel a bit better. And this is where the old, would you like a cup of tea, comes in handy. Hot sweet tea is great for relaxing and just generating that little dopamine. Proven fact, no one can be depressed eating chocolate. So if you can get someone to eat chocolate, that'll give them a little lift. Janine, you can take that one away now. Thank you very much. And welcome back, everyone. All right. So moving forward, I've just realized the time. Acceptance will not be handed to you. And your client needs to understand that as well. They come to you for help. They cannot be guaranteed they're going to get it if they're not ready for it. Even if you've done all the stages of grief, even if they have gone through everything, it's not a map. It's not a finish line. You have to get there yourself. No one can tell you that you're there. Accepting the pain and the loss and the impending changes is part of the process. Accepting that grief is part of life and loving, because some scars never fade. Nothing fixes itself. So if you have a traumatic grief or you're dealing with a traumatic grief of someone else, they need help. You can't ignore trauma and hope that it'll go away. They need sometimes professional help. On that, and I'm hoping that your little visualization has helped you with this. What I have done sometimes is a little roundup visualization to make sure you're okay, but I'm going to trust as you are all, I'm assuming, coaches, that you know how to take care of yourself. And that when you leave here, that you will do something uplifting. Go make a nice hot sweet coffee or tea, do something nice, go cuddle your children, pet your dog, whatever. Just do some things today to feel good so this doesn't weigh heavy on you. And I would like to round up with a cautionary note for coaches. How we deal with grief ourselves is impacts on our clients. So be mindful and aware. Are you wishing for something for your client? In your desire to help, you could be unconsciously moving them towards acceptance before they're ready and possibly mucking up their process. Our wish for clients to find release is not necessarily their wish. Their ability to accept and move forward is unique to them. So if somebody comes to you and I want to deal with this grief, great. How do they want to deal with it? What do they expect to get at the end? You can't think in your head, okay, I need to get them to acceptance. They're here at this stage, I need to get them to acceptance. They might never get acceptance in your sessions, but they might get on the way to it. If you are holding on to unprocessed grief yourself, ask yourself, are you giving them what deep down you would have liked to have received but never got? That's really important. If you've gone through grief, unsatisfactorily. If it's unprocessed, if you were one of those that rejected the acceptance, rejected the triggers, and we're all human, we do. Just because we're coaches doesn't mean to say we're perfect at every emotion. But do check, just check when you're dealing with some grief. Am I okay to do this? Can I put aside my feelings about how I had grief and deal with this person in front of me and what they need? Believing that your client has a capacity to deal with this is truly, it means you can support them much better on their terms and on their time frame. And that's where I finish. Thank you very much. And I would love to hear from some questions.
So please feel free to either type your questions in the chat box or feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions regarding what Ren has shared, or how do we use this within the coaching process.
So Rishka, apologies if I've not pronounced it right, has asked, what kind of exercise can a coach use for someone who is grieving to help them through the process? Again, I worry about the help them through the process. That phrasing, it might just be the way that you typed it. It's a difficult answer because what stage are they at? Only you will know your client in front of you. Do they need exercises? Maybe you could ask them, is there anything that I can do to help you? What do you think would work for you? Would visualization help you? Would talking in a grief support group help you? Maybe simply teaching them breathing, teaching them deep breathing. Because you'd be surprised how people do not know how to deep breathe. A lot of people breathe quite shallowly. And just teaching them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in, hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out. If any of you've done yoga, meditation, or anything like that, you will understand, you will know. It's simply just, it doesn't even matter if they count 5 in and 10 out. The counting is really a focus for the mind, but it's the depth of the breath down into the stomach that's what's important. Thank you, Rishka. I'm not sure if I helped answer very well, but do query yourself why you put the words help them through the process. Anything else?
Ren, we're getting some lovely comments thanking you. You're very clear and well paced. Maria says, life with no love and no grief is not living. People agreeing with that, acknowledging a very insightful session. Thank you, Ren. Thank you, Empower World. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ren. Wonderfully interesting session. Thank you. Beautiful slow down session, Ren. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ren. A beautiful presentation.
Oh, thank you so much for lovely things. I do hope it was helpful. I'm so glad. It is a fascinating topic. If this takes you forward reading more about it. Thank you all. I'm deeply touched.
Lovely. And finally, Aoife says, fabulously informative presentation in such a practical way. And Alpha, thank you so much, Ren, a helpful presentation. So thank you, everyone. And most of all, thank you with deep gratitude for Ren. Maybe we can give her a round of applause, acknowledging that wonderful hour, that gift we've given ourselves as well as Ren has given us. Thank you, Ren. Thank you so much. You can see the power of what you know and sharing it with others in the community. So please, if you have something to share, reach out and let Arslan, our support, know that you've got an idea and you'd love to demo it. What we've noticed when our alumni find the courage to come on and do this work, what happens is they find it's so powerful, they go on and do other events with their work that they've done. So we highly, highly encourage you to stretch yourselves out of your comfort zone and come and share your knowledge.
And this is the beauty, sorry, Janine, this is the beauty of, if there is a beauty in COVID, this is it, that we would not have been able to reach out across the world to all countries 2 years ago. We would have done a local meeting. And although it's wonderful doing person-to-person sessions, being able to reach across to all of you people like this is just fantastic.
It absolutely is, Ren. And I noticed a few more comments coming through. You answered Rishka's query as well. And I also wanted to just ask those who've not been on these events with us before, who perhaps aren't on our mailing list and would like to be for these types of events, please do reach out to our office manager, Arslan, our amazing office manager, on the email of support@empower-world.com. So if you'd like to be included on, again, getting notifications about these alumni events. So, and absolutely, thank you, Ren. Really appreciate you saying yes to our invitation to coming on to this, because we know that you've done this for ICF, the Doha chapter. So really appreciate you bringing this here. So, and we're trusting coaches that you're recognizing how you can bring some of this knowledge and awareness into your coaching sessions as well. So
yes, we are. So on a final note, we've got some exciting news for those who have trained with us and have done both our programs, both our foundational programs and our mentoring program. And for those who've only just done the foundational, there is something else as well. And we're going to share. We're not completely finished with it yet, but we've got some exciting news. So you're the first to know. I'm going to share my screen. What we've developed is through our years of transformation and work and evolving work of developing our coaching training program and also our mentoring program, we have developed for especially Empower World trained coaches. I'm going to share my screen. Da, 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 da. We need a roll call. You are going to be able to receive the Empower World Professional Coach stamp. And that is a badge that can be shared on all of your social media, sharing the process that you've been through, really recognizing you as an Empower World professional coach. People can click on that badge and see where you've been trained, and also see the process and the beautiful work of development that you have done to earn this badge. This badge comes when you do the coach training program and the mentoring program. And there is a special badge, another badge for those who've just done the training program that will be EWTC. But the professional coach stamp comes for all of those people who would like it to share on your social media, and we'll be sharing it with our community very soon. And you can request that badge. It's being developed as we speak. So we'd love your feedback. What do you think of this badge? Would you like to share it with your social media? Any thoughts about the process? Thumbs up from Maria. Yeah, we're very excited to be sharing this prototype with you.
Thanks, Olfa.
Fantastic. So Janine, I'm going to let you close off the session today.
I think you've already done it, Marie. So yeah, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you being here. So if you'd like to put perhaps a closing word in the chat box before you leave, we'd love to see that. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you perhaps at the next alumni session, which is sure to be fantastic, with Fatan, the amazing Fatan, who will be doing an appreciative inquiry into how do we as coaches get more clients. So that should be a great session. Maria says, can't wait to get my badge. So any other words that you'd like to share in the chat box to sign out? Amazing, says Renee. You're so welcome. Fabaruni says, Ren, fantastic. Thank you. We've gone through many iterations of the badge. Chrissy, a great session. Nice to see you and meet new people. Absolutely.
And Soki says, no easy way to understand grief. Thank you for unpacking the science behind it.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Fantastic. On that note, thank you everyone for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon somehow, some way.
Take care.
Thank you very much, ladies. Thank you, Empower World.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here. Well done, Ren.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye, Simona.
Bye. Bye, Simona.
Well done, Ren.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.